I would like to welcome you on behalf of the space you are sitting in, on behalf of Opero. And let me just say a couple of sentences, since we are pretty new on the Prague scene of co-working spaces and event spaces. Opero just opened 4 months ago, so we are really pretty new. And we are building Opero with the aim to become like a prime location and prime meeting spot for advanced professionals and entrepreneurs in Prague. We think that there is such a space is missing in Prague still, that most of the co-working spaces which are in Prague are really just focused on the startup community, and that we are kind of missing a place where people such as you can discuss, but also where they can meet, do business, work, and use it as a meeting space, but also as a space for inspiration. So it's a great honor to host such an interesting guest tonight, Randy, and also to being able to have a first meeting together with Keiretsu. So it's a great pleasure. I hope you enjoy this afternoon and the discussion. And I will give floor to Kateřina, who will introduce the guest. Thank you very much.
Hello. Dobré odpoledne. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So thank you for attending in a nice number here. And I would like to take the opportunity and introduce to you Randy Williams, who is the CEO and founder of Keiretsu Forum. By the way, who knows what Keiretsu means? Anyone? What language is it? Well, clearly, the members. Except for the members. It actually is in Japanese, synergy, enterprises, etc. So you will tell more about where the idea came from. So just a few words about Randy. He has been managing the platform for 17 years now, and Keiretsu can be considered the world's largest angel investors network. It was founded in the year 2000, and I guess the definition is it was founded to provide a disciplined and structured approach to private equity, venture capital, and angel investing. You can say it's now in 3 continents, from United States, China, and Europe, with 2,500 members. Recently, a 5th branch has been opened. And we also have 3,000 angel investors. Maybe a little bit about Randy, and you will tell more to the audience. Randy has 35 years of experience in investing in real estate, marketing, and finance. He has set up 3 banks, and he's a regular lecturer at leading universities in the United States. And with that, I will hand over the word to Randy, and then we have a panel of interesting presenters, which will follow Randy's presentation. So, Randy, please.
Good afternoon. I'm going to speak for 10 minutes. I'm talking about the history and the evolution of Keiretsu Forum. The chairman of Keiretsu Forum to my right, Luděk, will come up and interview me. I always think it's disingenuous when venture capitalists talk about their wins, which we're going to talk about, but let's talk about how to lose money, because we've certainly done that. So let me ask you, let's see how honest you all are. Who's lost money in investing in the room? See, they're honest, yes. Well, that's the reason I started Keiretsu Forum. My wife and I were able to retire, and the word retire is transition. We love the ecosystem of startups around the world, but we wanted to get into the startup arena 20 years ago. But we needed smarter people, at least than myself. My wife certainly helps me on my investments. I've made 53 investments at Keiretsu. And the whole spirit of Keiretsu is it really takes much more than one person making a decision when you invest. In the United States, we have no vested interest. When a company does receive funding, they receive 100% of the funding from us. But it's much more than funding. We have a lot of gray hair at Keiretsu, and we like to give resources to the companies. They have to ask, they have to receive, and conversely, we will give. It's very important to give to the companies to make them more In fact, that's the term of synergy. That's the term of Keiretsu. Keiretsu is a term that I borrowed when I was able to retire doing Japanese work. Can you see me here? Shall I? Okay. And it means where companies meet and grow stronger because they are doing business among each other. The real Keiretsu is the members. And you have members been with us 17, 18 years, and they have grown stronger and they're more efficient, being better investors. My wife and I, we try to, every time we have a liquidity event, because we've had failures. Of our 53 investments, we've had 8 failures. We've had 21 liquidity events, and we are about 34% internal rate of return on our capital because we have smarter people, at least myself. I need smarter people. Now, the way to use Keiretsu Forum, when you're a member of Keiretsu Forum, you're a member of the global community. In fact, United States people are using it as a tax write-off. They hopefully will be visiting Prague a lot and writing it off on their taxes. But it's very, very special to enjoy the world is flat. We think, and I started from day one, the world is flat, meaning the best deal flow doesn't have to come from Silicon Valley. It comes all around the world. In fact, Greylock, Sequoia, the large VCs in the valley, in Silicon Valley where we live, have been exploring, obviously, globally for the last decade because they feel they're as great ideas as I do, but the valuations now are high in Silicon Valley, and we want to come and see great companies, but we also want to selfishly commercialize your companies. When I say selfishly, meaning that when your companies grow, we grow as investors. As an example, we have a company. You all probably snow ski. Well, it's called A-Bomb, which is a company that's we've given them $6.5 million for, but they are a ski goggle. Well, okay, that's one application, but we are always thinking about other verticals, how to help these companies with other ideas. Well, a dear friend of mine is in the military, or was. He's retired Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States, General Pete Pace. I said, you need to be on this board of this company. And now there's 42,000 units have been sold to the military because the company asked for additional vertical or different industry, and we teed it up. So we want all of us and members here. In fact, I want to acknowledge the members in Prague. We were just in the Nordics. We're very happy to say in Europe we have 50 new members in Stockholm. We're just about to open Oslo. But we want the members here to be looking not only here, but obviously throughout Europe and through the United States. But getting back to what we do, above and beyond investing, we're giving resources to help the company because we have a lot of people in our database to help. So why don't I stop there? The history of Keiretsu is very simple. We started Keiretsu Forum, my wife and I, because our lack of discipline, expertise, investor. We were able to retire or transition from a real estate career, and quickly the iBanks starting losing money for us. And those are Goldman Sachs, UBS, and other people. And I said, there's got to be a better way that we get together, and I got together with 25 friends. Let's help each other be better investors. And that's the spirit today as it was 17 years ago. So every time, and hopefully we'll be making investments here in Prague, myself, and obviously other members throughout the world. But hopefully once we have a liquidity event, and liquidity events are happening everywhere. We have an IPO next 2 weeks from now. And one thing we want to do is we think the IPO market in America, we don't want to depend on any exit strategy. And we care deeply about exit because when you as entrepreneurs in the room, we need to monetize when you exit. You say you're going to exit in 2 years, we usually multiply it times 3. That means 6 years. But we have a company cleverly figuring out, we had the biotech marketplace collapsed last year, and this is a company, and we love impact investing, social bottom line, called Zychová, solving MRSA issues for young kids around the world with cystic fibrosis. It is going on a reverse merger. We invested in $12 million pre-money valuation. It's exiting 2 weeks at $145 million. So we want to cleverly help our companies move toward exit, and obviously we need to monetize, and that's why we have a big push this year in strategics. We want to introduce the companies in Prague or other parts of the world strategics, whether it be Siemens, whether it be Intel Ventures, whether it be Google Ventures. We fortunately have the relationships globally. And one of our differentiators, above and investing in everything around this room, from LED lighting to women's shoes to makeup to life science, we fortunately want to mobilize the resources because we feel our community of 3,000 members have heart. yes, we want to make money, but we also want to do good and have impact and social bottom line investing in the world. So why don't I stop there, and Luděk, you can ask me any question. We can talk about my losses. That's a lot of fun. So thank you.
Thank you, Randy. And first of all, thank you all for coming and attending, this very interesting event. And I would like to thank once again to Randy to come to Prague, because you heard from Katka already that Keiretsu Forum has now for how many? 50 plus chapters, branches. And this shows that we are not just one of the forgotten, far Eastern European chapter here, and it's equally important as any other chapter. So thanks, Randy, and thanks to your wife for coming, and we are so happy to have you here. Do you remember when we met the first time, by the way?
2.5 years ago?
I was actually in 2005 in Paris.
Oh.
When we somehow met, I don't remember how, and we've been talking, would it be already a time or situation for Keiretsu to come to Czech Republic and start doing something in Prague? And that time we concluded it's too early, probably, so because everything was just, too fresh and not real angel investors community here yet. So we said, okay, no time, so good luck, take care. And then some 10 years after, 2015, I've been on LinkedIn, and I saw that Keiretsu actually opened a chapter here in Prague. And certain Daniel Schenkir was the main guy, so I just, sent to you and Judy message, congratulations, can I help in any way? And he said, I go to Dan and speak with him, and okay, and 2 years from them, I see a real community here. There is a regular process, we follow the Keiretsu best practices. There is, I don't know, Peter, how many, 25 regular members and another 30 associated members. So we are very happy that, following your concept, we are somehow starting here as well. And, when I was actually comparing the situation here in Europe and when I visited you in California and checked how you do business there, I realized that, at least from my perspective, there is a significant difference which I've noticed. And it is that my feeling was that you really play there as a community with a very open cards, I felt a spirit, the people helping to each other. So do you think that this is a correct observation? You really...
Well, thank you. You're being very gracious. I personally think that, for instance, Town Square around the corner, people gather. People want to gather. What are they? Hopefully they're enjoying themselves. We are health club for the mind at Keiretsu Forum. We trying to learn, be inspired every day, and we also have to be very careful, a lot of risk and reward about investing in startups, but we want to learn from each other. And so I feel that humans want to participate. They want to participate, I'm a swimmer. I like to be on a swimming team. I like to be with Keiretsu Forum because I like like-minded souls to help each other be better investors. So I think the element of human spirit is to be part of a community, and this happens to be a global community of helping each other be better investors and helping entrepreneurs along the way.
Interesting. So there is obviously, many angel associations, investment clubs, whatever kind of organizations. So what do you think the main differentiator? What's the difference, and what makes the Keiretsu better than the others?
Well, number one, we really underscore collaboration and cooperation. We're not competing. We fortunately are the largest network of angels in the world. But we, in fact, we want to see your deal flow. If you have any angels here, the other angel groups, bring it on. We'd love to see it. But we also are very, very structured and disciplined, but we're deadly serious about investing. You go to a lot of wonderful pitch events, well, it's really populated by wonderful entrepreneurs. Where are the investors? Our job description is to lead leaders. Our job description is to bring investors to the table and make very, very important decisions to support the companies with capital and resources. And it takes courage, too. It takes courage to lose money, but hopefully because of our education. And that's why you were wise enough, and when we met in Paris a long time, you said it wasn't yet ready. Now I think it's really ready to be careful, but really, really grow your membership and enjoy the global network of Keiretsu Forum.
Yeah, and we believe, that what is one of the biggest advantages the membership in such an organization has, that, we are, as said before, a small community here, small community of investors, small community of entrepreneurs, and through this network, both investors have a chance to reach, the global deal flow, and the entrepreneurs have a possibility to raise capital globally. So, is that correct? Can you confirm it by your, experience with other parts of the world?
Yes, I brought that example about Sephora, the life science opportunity, solving MRSA issues. That company would have failed if it wasn't for angel investors. We participated in $14 million with Sephora, but they raised $40 million. The biotech marketplace was closed last year for IPOs. If it wasn't for angel investors, that company would have failed. And before Keiretsu Forum, when I made investments, if I saw a great company we invested in, if it didn't have a path and it was meeting its milestones, if it didn't have a path for additional capital, it would fail. Now those companies aren't failing because and again, I believe in the whole ecosystem of capital, but we are very structured in the way we give, but we also are full of resources to help your companies grow. And so the companies here commercialize. Think about using us. We're consumers in America. Use us. Yes, capital's there for you, but also use us for commercialization. Come for introductions. If you name an industry from big data to, AI to fintech. I mean, we have a lot of consumers in America. Use us to commercialize.
I don't know how familiar you are with the private equity and the general conditions here in the market, but in my view, the whole market now is through a significant changes. There have been a lot of local capital created in the past few years, and so there is a class of investors now being created who wants to be an angel investor, who wants to invest. Would you have any somehow, and we react to the situation, we established this Angel Academy, and I mean talking about it later, but would you have some, a best advice, for those who want to start to be an angel investor? How shall they start? Because, there was an advice or rule in the past, I remember at least, that the angel investor shouldn't invest into a company which is more than, 4 hours of drive from his home. Now everything is changing, we have new technology, so what do you think about this? Can a local Czech angel investor immediately start invest globally using, for example, Keiretsu Forum, or would it be better to first try something at home? And what's your view?
New members of Keiretsu Forum, we have a 6-month rule in Northern California. We ask you not to invest. Sounds contrary, but we want to have you educated. And that's what you're doing. You're educating these investors. Go slowly. A lot of risk, a lot of opportunities. But one thing interesting about Keiretsu Forum, we also invest in brick and mortar. We invest in real estate, other businesses outside technology. Of our now 1,250 fundings, 85% of them are technology, but we like rolling the dice, investing in a lot of different. But also be careful. Where I lost money as an investor was on valuations. The founder may be valuing the company a little high. Well, the founders might do well on exit, but the angels don't. So in fact, all of you, if you're interested, we have a book written called Keiretsu Forum Due Diligence Book, and it's written by and for the members. And people ask me, why don't you sell the book? It's very interesting. It's over 400 pages. It's a gift from our members and myself. We've written it over the last 16 years. Is how we do due diligence, how we think, how we're careful, but conversely, how we fortunately actually make an investment and how we structure it. And obviously, we have different structuring and nuances or differences around the world, but we're very careful of valuation. Typically, a member will invest in a company they are very comfortable with first, an industry. For instance, if I was joining Keiretsu Forum tomorrow, I'd probably invest here in Prague in real estate, my background. And then I would get to know other Keiretsu Forum members like Luděk that have a background in PE or certain experts. You're expert in many things, but I would then get to know and have a relationship with Luděk and hopefully another 50 of the members, and so I could diversify. So members invest in something they're comfortable with, and eventually they diversify through the relationships of trust.
Was very nice invitation. to the organization. And what is interesting what you said, because many people, I believe, think that when they hear an angel investment, they think about the startups and technologies, and very early venture stages. But it's not true within the Keiretsu, right? So I've seen the deals which are definitely not startups, definitely not high tech, and these are like even more traditional deals, and they also represent opportunities for angels. Is that right?
That's correct. And also be milestone investors. So let's say your entrepreneur wants $100,000 from you. Well, spread it out. Say, okay, you're going to meet your milestones. You are truly going to get that customer, or maybe you're going to get so many customers. Then I will continue giving you money up to $100,000. So challenge that entrepreneur instead of giving $100,000 and all of a sudden disappears. Milestone invest, and I enjoy milestone investing. I mean, for instance, Safari's example, that liquidity event, we have the opportunity to obviously have liquidity or stay in. My wife and I will probably stay in because we like to continue, going up, because that company is going to be worth $145 million in 2 weeks. But I think it's going to be worth anywhere from $200 to $300 million in the next 4 or 5 years. So you have it on tape here. So we'll see. But I'm an optimist.
And maybe just to clarify for the auditorium, because obviously it's been said that Keiretsu is an association which provides a quality deal flow to potential investors, but you also mentioned a couple of times that you directly invested into either through vehicles or direct. So can you elaborate a bit about this, how the investments from the Keiretsu Forum works?
Me personally?
I mean, whoever. I know that there are like funds within the organization that people invest direct. So if you say we as a Keiretsu provided money, what does it mean actually?
Well, we have a family of funds of Keiretsu Forum. 1 is a real estate fund and 3 are venture capital, topping off our best deal flow globally. And we look forward to participating after Keiretsu Forum members invest in Prague companies that you then put forth, Luděk and your team, say this company is worthy of additional capital. I'm a general partner in that fund, but that's later stage. We like our members to focus on what they're interested in, but if they want to diversify, put a little bit of money. For instance, I know you're an investor in the fund, but we like to have our members to invest. Let's say they have $1 million to invest next 3 years. Just put 100. Just put a little bit in the fund, and then focus on things that you have expertise on yourself. The fund is a top-off fund, and we designed it for the members who don't have time. So I have 179 investors in the funds, and those are usually the members that are busy working for a living, and they want to diversify. And the fund, each particular entity, each fund invests in anywhere from 35 to 40 companies. A little bit, but it's diversification. In fact, our very first liquidity event, because the funds are only 2 years old, will be Safari. So it's a pretty good liquidity event that's coming up next 2 weeks for our fund investors.
Yeah, happy to hear that you think about the investing here in Prague. I know it's been your first visit and hopefully it's definitely not your last one. I think that with that said, I would give the floor back to Kateřina because we have very interesting panelists here.
So let me briefly introduce the panel of distinguished guests we have. Women first, Silke. Everyone probably knows Silke from being the guru of private equity and venture capital here in Prague. So she's an executive director of CVCA, which is the Czech Association of Venture Capital and Private Equity. She has been working within the space for a lot of years. I won't say how many, hence the age. But more importantly, I think, is the fact that you're heading the association and you sort of are the factor of putting people together. And I think you will have a lot to say to my questions. I will go this way. Sorry, it's Martin Kučera, who is the executive director and CEO of CzechInvest, which is an agency which promotes international investments into Czech companies. You may be able to say a little bit more if it's startups or if it's more established companies to yourself. And lastly, and sorry, my memory is not working 100% today. It's Nikola Rafaj, who is the founder and executive director of StartupYard, which is an accelerator for technology startups, as well as Tech Square, which is a platform which promotes IT investments. Is it about correct? Okay, so with that and the rest of the team has been introduced. So maybe because a lot of questions have been addressed, so perhaps we can start with, and probably Martin, you can comment on this, and let's ask you about the role of the government in investing into startups, angel investments, etc. How do you see it from your job and from your position?
Good afternoon, everybody. Basically, CzechInvest is active in, or has two major roles. One major role is basically help settle down investment from large investors into the Czech Republic. And the second role is basically create and enhance business environment in Czech Republic, where also startups and basically increasing investments into the startups also belong. And here I will basically sum it up into three major roles. One major role, we basically see the role of state and also of CzechInvest is promoting and making people go boldly where no one has go before. If I use Star Trek quote, basically just stand up and try to walk as a kid does. And if you have a dream, then just try it. There are people who have done it before, so go ahead. And so promoting, getting some programs that the people get into the touch with this strange reality and feels that it's actually doable. The second part is that we are offering some programs for those who really want to try this career to lower the risk and kind of provide a direction from other experienced people, and also to get them the investors and also the startups to help with fields which they usually tackle with, like accounting, like IP rights, etc. And the third part is actually increasing the information and information flow in between startups, investors, incubators, but also R&D scene, and also kind of lowering risk of investors by co-investing, potentially co-investing with investors, meaning that the investor can have a greater leverage in a startup, but also lower risk. So it's three main roles. One is help people to inspire to walk, if I say it so. The second is basically help them move in the direction where they want. And the third one is lower the risk. So three major roles.
Maybe Martin, on that note, I will ask you specifically, has CzechInvest made any investments in Silicon Valley, for example?
We have several companies which are active in Silicon Valley, which use our programs, but as a governmental agency, we are not competition for all other investors. We want to basically kind of increase the competitiveness of the whole system and the level of the whole system. So right now, CzechInvest is not investing, and the government is creating a special fund which should co-invest, which should mainly focus on co-investing, meaning really the government doesn't want to go into the competition with other large investors. The government wants to kind of help to create environment and improve it. Because
when is the fund going to be concluded?
The fund should be concluded sometime after July, August. It depends basically on our Czech National Bank, because it will be investment fund, meaning that it has to be regulated, meaning all other things which goes with the regulation.
Mm-hmm. And the size of the fund?
The size of a fund, if I remember correctly, is, I think in the beginning, 20 million euros or so.
Okay, on that note, I probably pass it. Another question for Silke.
12 million euros.
It probably goes hand in hand with your view in terms of government subsidies, government incentives. And what I remember from the UK, that there's been a lot of aggressive tax schemes, if I put it that way, which incentivized investors to actually invest through angel or CV activities, and for that getting significant tax credit. What do you think the Czech government or the local government should do in our piece of the world to promote such investments?
Definitely, that's the next step to do, I guess. As my colleague already mentioned, the Ministry of Industry and Trade has now, well, for a couple of years already preparing a program to support early stage investments, venture capital in the Czech Republic. Well, I think the primary role of the state is to stimulate, to motivate, not to replace investment activities. So I think it's essential to motivate, and tax schemes is something we never had here in the early stage sector, so I think this is really important. And yeah, as you mentioned in the UK, that had really a stimulating role. As far as I remember, when the first scheme actually was introduced, that triggered next year investments of early stage into 1,000 companies in the UK. So that's really an important effect. And we have raised these questions already in discussions with the Minister of Finance, actually. And currently, the European Commission is undertaking a study to investigate actually best practice in the European Union with regard to motivation schemes on the tax side for early stage investments. And we as an association have committed actually to provide a reasonable proposal to the Czech government, to the Ministry of Finance. We want to do it based on the results of this study. That's with regard to tax schemes. With regard to the support program, as you know, this is actually the second attempt from the Ministry of Industry and Trade to start something, state support, co-investments in the early stage sector. The first attempt was unsuccessful for different reasons. Now it's the second one. I have sometimes a little bit of mixed feelings about this. When I look at the numbers, it's very evident that, of course, a lot of investment makes also a lot of results in this respect. So looking at statistics, for example, if I compare in our region, the leading countries with respect to venture capital early stage investments, we don't have actually business angel statistics, but venture capital leading countries, Poland and Hungary. For Poland, it's no surprise because it's the largest country in this region, but Hungary, this is really based on government support. It means EU programs, the Jeremy program. They had different rounds of fund-of-fund investments. The Baltic states are also quite progressive, better than Czech Republic, so we have something to catch up with. On the other side, not always quantity is the best, you know. Especially looking at Hungary, I would have a lot of question marks if all of these investments have been quality investments. But nevertheless, looking at the wider range in European countries, not only in Europe, first of all in the US, but in the UK, it has a long tradition, and there have been different schemes with different success, of course, but it has always stimulated the sector. So if it's probably somehow motivating and so on, structured. So we have been closely working with the Ministry of Industry and Trade for the second attempt, and definitely I think it's a step in the right direction. We really support the fund-of-fund structure, which is part of the program, the largest part. This is 50 million euro plus another 10 from the EIF, who is actually managing this fund-of-fund. And I think the call is open, so if you have a look at the page of the ministry, you'll find the call. I think it's already open, if I'm not wrong. So we can actually apply for this support in venture capital. And I think it will be really a stimulus for the market, because also there is quite a lot of money in early stage investments right now, or generally in the Czech market. I think it will, let's say, cultivate the market a little bit. We will have more, let's say, funds which are really operating in a venture capital modus, fundraising, really absorbing third-party money, and I think that will be progress. With regard to the other program which we were mentioning, this is a co-investment fund. That means that the new investment company, state-owned, will invest alongside private investors directly into companies. I have a little bit of problem with this, if this is the most appropriate structure for the Czech Republic. But let's give it a try, we'll see. And there is a third component we haven't actually mentioned. This is a pre-seed fund, which will be also managed by the NIF, and this will start probably only in 2018.
Randy, how do you see the composition of the liquidity globally? Because as we mentioned, you're present in China, States, Europe. Is the money coming, what's the percentage of money coming from the government agencies, and what's the percentage of private investors?
Well, on a positive note, our Canadian chapters bring to us in America non-dilutive funding. So they will have a grant that's non-dilutive to our equity, because equity is all risk. You know, we can lose it all. So obviously, I would imagine you're probably doing the same thing. You're probably providing grants, but also it's also a double-edged sword. I see American companies not relying on the government, and I see if they can fundraise, I know they can also get customers. And I know if they get customers, they can lead toward an exit. So dependent on government money, you know, is a double-edged sword. So I would say a little bit of money predicated on great milestones is very important. The rest of your question is about
percentage
liquidity?
of division of the liquidity. How much is coming from government money? How much is from
Very
private
little
investor?
in America, but
Elsewhere, China.
China, we're very patient. We've been there 10 years. And we just opened in Shenzhen 3 weeks ago, and it's an innovation center. And we're starting to see, I mean, everybody talks about Chinese capital. There's a lot of places that don't ever receive it. We have HB programs in America where you provide 10 jobs for $1 million, you'll get capital. So we're starting to see more and more capital come in, but we don't want to be dependent on capital. We want it to be dependent on great ideas, and also you, as entrepreneurs in the room, you have to be able to find our money, and because if you got to be clever enough to really work with us and present to us, then you'll be clever enough possibly for customer acquisitions and moving toward, obviously, an exit. But we have tremendous liquidity, in fact, too much liquidity right now in Silicon Valley. The reason Keiretsu Forum succeeds in Silicon Valley, because we're early. We're under $5 million. Some of the big tier 1 VCs, as I mentioned earlier, from Kleiner Perkins, Greylock, etc., they need to deploy billions. And so they're coming in $25 million rounds and up. I mean, you obviously know what's going on in Uber. I mean, there's a lot of capital in Uber. But guess what? One thing great about Silicon Valley, most of these companies were created by angel money first. We had a Keiretsu Forum member put $200,000 in Google, and that turned out to be $486 million at IPO. It was funny because I asked him to speak to Keiretsu Forum, obviously, of that exit, or excuse me, IPO of Google, I think it was, what, 8, 9 years ago? But he stood up and says, listen, it's a great company, buy the stock. But we were so smart, we didn't buy the stock then. I'm a stockholder now. But a lot of the great companies are created by angels in America. And I think great companies here will be created by angels. It's real important to have government money, but in America, we don't want to depend on it. If you start depending on government money, then you're truly not too entrepreneurial. You always go back to the mother's milk, which is government money. I want you to depend on the global capital and the global resources and just government money. But I may be contrarian with that view.
No, we agree with you. Okay. Nikola, a question for you. In terms of Czech startups, how would you qualify their capability in terms of being able to compete with global trends, with global competition? What do you see in your accelerator? Are we good enough? Can we compete with our competition?
I think we can be proud of to work with such great startups. We are in a technology sector, so it means all this internet and software stuff. And I think engineers, not from Prague, from Central Europe, are very well known, being great. And related to this question about government, my dream was to have a fund with the government, something like. I launched, I think, 4 companies here in Prague. I'm born in the Czech Republic, so it would be great to prove that even the government can invest into startups and make all this sector great. At the end, when we talk about EIF and this new fund, we started to talk to EIF about 2 years ago. They told us we are too small for them. Finally, they did this fund of fund, and we are 2 accelerators here in Czechia, and none of us will apply for this grant because there are so many business obstacles from the view of an entrepreneur that we won't go for it. So I would do something with the government, with the state, but to me it's too many obstacles.
Do you struggle to find private money? As we all know, the liquidity is overwhelming. Is it difficult for you to find local investors? If not local, then foreign investors?
When we talk about numbers, about the finance, not. If we talk about smart money, yes. It's because we work with seed stage companies, so I define something like -6 months till 2 years from the incorporation, so very early stage, and not so many smart investors. It means that they are capable to work with them in that field. So you need some specialists even. So to me, we still need to find more angels, and I think even these events, these gatherings are about to engage other people to come to the community.
Luďku, how can we promote expansion of Czech startups, and sorry for going back to Czech, but we have Czech audience here, internationally. So you know it from private equity as well, that we invest here and we try to, it's all about scale, so we try to expand. Where do you see the challenges, how to take our startups globally?
It's been already said. It's about to get the smart money on the board, because what I've experienced here, it's a lot of great ideas, a lot of great business plans. The companies mostly struggle with a strategy how to get the goods or the service to the market. So the route to the market is the key, and I think it's the weakness here in the region. So working on this, I think this will definitely change and increase the chances. And it's a key factor for the success. So more smart money would definitely help. That's my idea.
On that note, do you see, I don't know, Martin, probably to you, do you see people syndicating investments? Because I have invested under our platform into, and we're actually currently looking for a €5 million investment, and we're looking for co-investors because we're only capable of taking 1 million slot. So that's the case for me when I'm looking for co-investors, and it's been quite a struggle. Do you guys co-invest with other people, or do you see it happening?
Well, this is a struggle. Basically, in these early stages, we also have a program for technological companies with relation to the space technologies. So we have European Space Agency Business Incubation Center, where there is a smart money for prototyping and putting the thing on a market. But definitely one of the main reasons why we are trying to be more active as a governmental institution is to basically bridge the gap. And there is a large gap between the first small money from family fools and friends, and then something beyond, which is usually something larger, which means that you can move beyond basically normal scale of Czech Republic, which require definitely either some grant schemes that you can go out see the business opportunity and get an investment from outside world, or here the people are usually taking less risks. That's why also we think that the governmental fund, even though it is not the best idea, definitely the governmental money is always with some questions, can help to basically start activity in this field, so that more syndicates will be formed. Otherwise, usually what we see with startups which are going through our programs and with whom we are in contact, it's usually 1-2 guys betting on startups, making some angel investment, but it's nothing like 3-4 people putting together the money. It has to be then some larger startup which has some proven concept, etc. So this is hard. It's not happening in Czech Republic that much.
Silke, do you see through your platform, CVCA, do you put people together? Do you promote syndications on deals?
Well, actually, that's what I mentioned before. I think what the Czech Republic needs is more venture capital funds, which are, more flexible and naturally syndicating. They're all syndicating all the time. If you look at Credo Ventures, which is unfortunately, I would say, the real one experienced venture capital fund in this country. There are other groups working together, other funds as well, but they're our only member, I have to say. They have in all their investments business angels and of course also other VC funds, especially from the US, which gives their portfolio companies access to other markets, so that's always an advantage. So I hope very much that it's not so much about the money coming in, it's more giving also the business model of venture capital funds, which I hope will be promoted by this fund-of-fund structure, so that groups which are working naturally together raise up to a fund structure, and you see it much more as a naturally basis indication on a venture capital fund structure than on a business angel. Business angels are working together as long as they're somehow already united in a group. As individuals, not so often. Yeah. But I think that's a great opportunity for you guys here. I mean, Keiretsu is doing a great job because we are also nearly the only country in the region which doesn't have a real angel platform. And I remember actually there were some in the Czech Republic. But unfortunately, it's a difficult business model, as we know. So I'm very happy that we have Keiretsu, and we have, supported you guys for some time. So I hope really this will fly as a model, and bring these business angels more together and give them also more qualification. Because if I look back, for example, last year's statistics, which I did today, which were the bigger deals of business angels, it's always the same names. It's always the same names. I mean, talking about larger deals, and it's a handful, let's say.
Maybe, Randy, on that note, do you think we're missing here some sort of angel academy, i.e. a platform which would educate investors how to approach angel investing? You think that kind of, I know Keiretsu is sort of providing that, but in States you have Angel Academy, I believe.
Yes, and we feel that education is really key to anything you do in life. Getting back to your comment for a moment, my dream next at Keiretsu Forum is create country funds and be pari passu possibly with your capital. And we will put our capital in, but let's keep the companies local, but let's commercialize them globally. So that's my next dream, and hopefully Luděk and the team will help me on that. And so we'll come in with capital, but we think the company should stay. The problems a lot of governments have is the companies leave. I mean, when I go to Silicon, we have a large event May 2nd in Silicon Valley, and there's 600 of us gathered around the world of our members. And I always ask who speaks 7 or 8 languages. Always my Indian members put their hands up, and down to, maybe I always get down to 3. So how many speak 4 or 5 languages? 90% of the room. And so the world's traveling to us. Now we have to encourage them to travel here and travel other great places. I'm on stage alone. Who speaks 1 language? Me. But education is very important, and Luděk and his team are providing that. And I think not only for education for the entrepreneur, but for the investor too. And you know, like right now, one of the things we're very interested in Silicon Valley is machine learning. How can we apply machine learning to be not only better investors, but also help your companies really grow the next step? Because we're looking at trends 5 to 10 years out, and there's so many trends from big pharma. And a lot of us, you know, as we get older, we got to really we got to care about the aged. So we're watching about drug costs coming down. So we're looking at trends all the time. But education is critically important, so we can understand what trends are happening in China, what trends are happening in Prague or in, you know, Istanbul. In fact, Istanbul, when we launched that, our chapter over there 5 years ago, 90% of the first year fundings of 13 companies were Silicon Valley. We said, let's flip that. Let's get comfortable with the process and let's have 90% be local. The same thing here. Let's invest locally, but you think actually more global than we do in North America. You are thinking, and we want to flip that where a lot of the investments stay here, but you're also thinking global.
Nikola, what are the potential challenges for, say, for your business, for your sector? What do you like to see improved, or what, you know, what's missing?
It is a really tough question, because I should say that we're fine, that these are really great times being an investor, because many people are leaving their stable positions in big corporations and want to launch a company. By the way, many CEOs tell us that this is the biggest issue for them. People are leaving the company because they want to make their dream life. To me, I think it's the biggest issue is not being something like Central European hub for us, because we attract people not just from the Czech Republic, even from Poland to Balkan to Kosovo, something like that, and to attract those people to come to Prague to set up a company and work here or live here. There's so many issues for them, how to get visa, anything like that. It's a nightmare. So for me, I would like to have Prague as a great spot where people can come and work. Maybe I'm dreaming, but when I compare to other cities in Central and Eastern Europe, it's often easier for them. If I want to attract an entrepreneur from Kosovo to come to Prague, within a few weeks he can set up a company in Berlin. So to me, I hope it will be better in a few years.
Let's hope so. Maybe lastly, and then I will open up for questions to Luděk and probably the rest of the panelists. Do you see the same trend as we have in private equity in terms of being looking for projects, actually money chasing projects, as opposed to projects looking for money, i.e. over liquidity in the market, overvaluation, potential bubble, as we saw many times in last decade or 2 decades? Do you see the same trend in angel investing as well?
Interesting questions. I think it's not possible to generalize. I think that there is money chasing good deals, and there are not that good deals chasing money. So I think that if there is a good deal, it always has funding, and then we would continue in a discussion of the state money role in the market. But yeah, I think that the quality is the key factor, and in general there is more money in the market than good deals. That's what I believe.
Randy, can you comment?
We have a company called Telltale Games, which is episodic game company, Game of Thrones and Minecraft. We license the rights of. It's a unicorn, or close to be a $1 billion company. We feel, speaking of AI, we feel that space is very crowded, so we're kind of backing away from gaming, in that particular space. So getting back to your great comment, Luděk, is that depending on the vertical, depending on the, we see very crowded space. Like for instance, the incubators in America. We see WeWorks. Whoever thought that would be worth billions? But it's a very interesting play there. And a dear friend of ours is on the board of Royal Bank of Scotland, and she just put over 200 million into a San Francisco incubator that's moving to Ireland and also England. But whoever thought that would be an asset class? So I like to see asset classes emerge. For instance, fix and flip. When you buy a house and sell it. Well, 2 members did that. And they created 16,000 homes in America, and we were happy investors, and I was on the advisory board of that company. That was a 45x return. Now, those members, in fact, I had lunch with Doug Bryan, ex-CEO, last week, and he would never do that space now. So you always have to look at the space and the vertical and what's next. And we're always looking 5 to 10 years out. Now, do we make mistakes? Absolutely. But be careful about when you get crowded space in certain industries, because and also fortunately because of Google, you can certainly see what's happening around the world of a company that you think you have a tremendous differentiator, but you can see that's being created possibly in Beijing or maybe Istanbul or Northern California. And also, I believe in licensing big time. I like to get out of the way, license, for instance, Keiretsu Forum. That is a licensing platform that I've licensed ownership and leadership around the world because they care deeply about what's going in Czech Republic. I don't have time to truly be here all the time. So licensing with your great companies, start licensing and having great distribution globally.
Thank you. On that note, do we have any questions from the audience?
It was mentioned that the amount of liquidity on the market is pretty high. So my question, a little bit in terms of angel investments and venture capital, I think in terms of venture capital, that somehow affects the returns of the deals and holding period. So what is the angel response to the amount of liquidity on the market, short amount of deals? So what effect does it have on your industry? What kind of holding periods on investments you have? What kind of investment strategy you have? Do you hold it, then exit, or you kind of extend your holding period and get the dividends?
My wife and I love education, and we made an investment in a company called myroad.com before Keiretsu Forum was created 17 years ago. And I just remember the valuation. I didn't spend a lot of time on it, and at that time the valuation is $8 million pre, $10 million post. And that company sold for $8 million. Well, guess who did well? The founders did. The angels did poorly. I mean, I got 23 cents. I shouldn't tell you. I didn't get very much money back on that one. But I didn't get very much. So we care deeply. We want the entrepreneurs to win, but you have to win too. So we want you to tell us market comps. I mean, yes, it is a discussion. It is an argument, but we eventually will get to convertible. But you have to tell us what you feel the value is. And then fortunately, we have global comps. But typically, the angels, historically, we're still under 10 million, at least in the Valley. So typical deal for us is usually between 2 and 6 million pre, post up, let's say it raises $2 million from us. The best deals are our capital leading to break even. We're patient on when you scale, but that could take 4 or 5 years. That's the best way to mitigate risk as investors, is if say our capital come in to do a break-even status. So valuations are extremely, I call it a win-win. When entrepreneurs get up and they're talking about evaluations too high, I said always, and you've heard me say this, Luděk, wherever I'm leading meetings throughout the world, I said, is it negotiable? And if they say no, game off. If they say yes, let's discuss it. Let's discuss it as friends. But you have to justify your valuation. Am I answering the question? Okay.
Perhaps. Not really.
Well, let's talk about an example. It's a very broad subject, too.
Okay, there was another question there.
Well, Randy, you kind of answered part of my question already, but my name is Peter, and I'm old enough to have gone through the first .com cycle. And really investing is like a market, just like any other. And I think there's a question about liquidity in the market, and I think there's a huge amount of liquidity. But I think that we're again in a situation where valuations are very high. We're almost approaching again irrational exuberance. And I've seen 3 great companies here and the guys know in Keiretsu, where I've actually not invested because the valuation I just thought was too high for me. And just looking at my portfolio, it's interesting because 40% I've got in stocks and bonds, 59% in real estate, and 1% in venture capital. And I'm the guys know I'm crazy. I love venture capital and startups, etc. But the valuations just seem to me, again, very high and over and above what an individual investor really is comfortable with, who's got hands-on experience and sees the risk and knows what it's like to grow these small companies. But how do you see the market developing over the next, let's say, 2 to 3 years in terms of that supply and demand and where valuations are going to kind of go? And it's not, valuations are one thing, but also the terms, it's very closely connected.
Yeah, and your great-grandparents that lived through the Depression, they were very careful after they came out of Depression. A lot of companies we fund between 19 and 24-year-olds, they've never seen a recession. We've been probably between 2 and 3, and so we're very careful. But the valuation, and that's a great shout out, instead of having your portfolio 1%, we allocate approximately 4 to 5% toward alternative investing. I'm in banking, I'm in real estate, and also venture, i.e. angel investing. But if they're not going to negotiate the valuation, then I walk away. So entrepreneurs in the room, please negotiate. It's for your win. But it's not exacting science. But getting back to our booklet, Keiretsu Forum Due Diligence book, we have 2 chapters on setting the valuation. And again, we don't want to fight about it, but it will eventually come to a convertible note. And the convertible note then obviously sets for the next round. But also, one thing about convertible notes, a lot of our exits are not VC exits. Even though 5% of our membership in the Valley is VCs, tier 3 all the way to tier 1s, while our exits are really strategic and or other means, which I mentioned, Safari, which is that reverse IPO. So again, it's negotiate. I call it arm wrestling. Arm wrestle. And so the way you'll get capital is to arm wrestle. But you have to justify, the entrepreneurs, you have to justify really where you think the market comp is. I'm going to keep looking at you. Are you an entrepreneur? Yes. But you see nothing but upside now. But I've seen downside. You haven't because you're young. And so hopefully you'll listen to someone that's gone through the cycle. But the reason I love investing is because, it's probably the most exciting asset class in the world. Yes, thumbs up. And, we want to keep making those bets. And again, if you say you want to invest $100,000 and you're just not you're really uncertain, invest $25,000. I tell our members worldwide, go slowly. But if they're meeting their milestones, keep investing in them.
Okay, any more questions? The panelists, any more comments? Closing remarks? No? Nikola, Silke, Martin, Luděk, Randy, thank you very much. And let's mingle and perhaps people have more questions after the time. Thank you.